beneath the restless city, where the first light of morning struggles to find its way through layers of stone and steel, the Piccadilly Line awakens with a groan of iron and a sigh of stale air. The platform is already alive with that particular electricity of London's dawn rush. An undercurrent of purpose threaded through the very hum of the underground. The sound comes first. The long, metallic whisper of a train approaching, growing from a distant murmur to the deep, resonant roar of steel on steel, echoing down the tiled tunnel like a memory of distant thunder. There is a brief, breathless pause, a collective tightening of the crowd, and then the train arrives in a rush of wind that carries with it the mingled scents of old dust, warm oil, and the faint, sharp tang of winter air that has followed its passengers in from the streets above. Commuters spill from its doors like a sudden tide, their footsteps quick and purposeful, shoes clicking and thudding against the worn concrete. In their wake comes the rustle of newspapers. Those broad, grey sheets, folded hastily, some clenched beneath arms, others held open by deft hands as eyes dart across headlines. They flutter and snap in the underground breeze, carrying the day's first stories into the crowd like whispered gossip. A young man in a navy coat tucks a folded Evening Standard under his arm while balancing a paper cup of coffee in his other hand. The steam curls upward, fragrant and rich, mingling with the heavier scent of the tunnel's age. Somewhere nearby, a woman adjusts her scarf, her hair brushed forward by the wind from the departing train, and her perfume drifts for a fleeting second, a warm floral note that cuts gently through the underground musk. Above the steady rhythm of footsteps and the shuffle of clothing, the tannoy crackles to life. A clipped, polite voice announces the next train to Heathrow, its syllables echoing into the high arched ceiling, followed by a faint hiss as the sound system clicks off. A busker's faint guitar chords drift up from the far end of the platform, their fragile melody barely surviving against the din. Some notice and smile briefly. Others hurry past without a glance, their minds fixed on the office clocks ticking far above. The train doors slide open again, this time admitting a fresh surge of passengers. There is a small choreography in the boarding. The sideways shuffle to let others pass, the quick claim of an empty seat, the practiced stance of those who will stand, feet planted wide against the sway of the carriage. A young woman finds herself shoulder to shoulder with a stranger, the warmth of their coats pressed together in the narrow aisle. Neither speaks, but there is a silent understanding in their mutual balancing against the train's lurching start. The journey begins with a jolt, and the carriage sways through the dark, windowed only by fleeting glimpses of tunnel walls rushing past. Inside, the world compresses into this narrow capsule of strangers, each enclosed in their own small orbit. A man near the door flips open his newspaper to the crossword page, chewing the end of a biro. Across from him, a student reads from a battered paperback, lips moving faintly with the words. The coffee drinkers cradle their cups like talismans against the cold, and the soft hiss of the train on the rails is punctuated by the occasional squeal as the curve tightens. The stations pass in rhythm. A sigh of brakes, a sudden stillness, the shuffle of coats and bags as new passengers climb aboard, the doors closing with a muted thud. Above ground, the city is waking. Here, below, it has already been awake for hours. In the pause between stations, the tunnel grows utterly black, and the reflected faces in the carriage windows take on a kind of ghostly presence. Pale shapes framed by the overhead lights, eyes half lost in thought. Somewhere in the middle of the carriage, two friends share a quiet laugh over something on a phone screen, their voices low, but warm, carrying that tiny spark of companionship that can soften even the chillest morning. At Covent Garden, the crowd surges again, and for a moment the train feels impossibly full. Shoulders pressed to strangers, breath mingling in the close air. A faint trace of fresh croissants rides in with someone's bag, mingling with the sharper scent of wet wool and rain from the streets above. The busker's melody is gone, now replaced by the deeper, more constant music of the underground. The rattle of the carriage, the soft jingle of keys in a pocket, the far-off sound of another train passing somewhere beyond the tunnel wall. Gradually, the rush begins to thin. At Green Park, a tide of navy coats and leather briefcases pours out, replaced by fewer, quieter figures. The newspapers are folded and tucked away, coffee cups drained to their last lukewarm sip. Somewhere, an elderly gentleman removes his hat and wipes the fog from his glasses. His slow, deliberate movement a calm counterpoint to the briskness that has defined the morning so far. As the train climbs gently toward the daylight, a pale wash of sun finds its way through the high station windows, striking the platform tiles with a sudden warmth. The air changes, still tinged with that underground scent, but touched now with fresher notes of stone, warmed by light, of air that has known the sky. Passengers disembark into the muted chaos above. The echo of their footsteps up the stairs. The low roar of buses along Piccadilly. The hawk-like cries of street vendors setting up their morning stalls. And yet, down below, the cycle continues. Another train arrives, another tide surges. The morning rush on the Piccadilly Line is never truly finished, only passed along from one set of hands, one set of weary shoes, to the next. A living rhythm, echoing beneath London's waking heart. Camden on a Saturday unfurls like a tapestry woven from 1,000 restless threads, each shimmering with its own hue, each vibrating to its own beat. The narrow streets leading toward the market are already thrumming with footsteps. The cobblestones echoing under the constant shuffle of trainers, boots, and the occasional impractical heel. Above, the sky is the muted grey of a London morning. A perfect canvas against which the colours of Camden blaze brighter. The graffiti murals spilling down brick walls. Shop signs painted in fierce reds and yellows. And the occasional mannequin head wearing a mohawk wig that sways gently in the breeze. The air here is thick with scent. As you step beneath the railway bridge, with its bold turquoise lettering, the first tendrils of cooking aromas curl toward you. Smoky jerk chicken, sizzling on a hot grill, the sharp sweetness of churros, dusted with cinnamon sugar, the earthy spice of falafel frying in golden oil. These fragrances mingle and dance in the air, forming a heady perfume that belongs to no single culture and yet to all of them at once. Somewhere close by, a stallholder stirs a giant wok of noodles, the hiss of soy and ginger rising above the din. The market itself is a labyrinth. Narrow passageways twist between stalls crammed with treasures both authentic and absurd. Battered leather jackets softened by years of wear-racks of vintage. Band tees that still smell faintly of last century's cigarette smoke, gleaming trays of antique jewelry where silver catches the light like water. Some stalls seem to overflow into the walkway, their owners perched on stools, rolling cigarettes or chatting lazily with the passing tide of strangers. Music is the market's heartbeat. From one corner comes the raw scrape of punk guitar, played by a wiry man in a leather vest whose amplifiers hum with barely contained energy. Just beyond, a busker with a violin spins a melody that could have wandered in from another century, sweet and lilting against the backdrop of Camden's grit. These sounds overlap and merge, echoing through the covered arcades and out into the open courtyards. giving the sense that every step you take has its own soundtrack. People move through the maze with different kinds of purpose. Some are hunters, eyes sharp, searching for a rare vinyl or the perfect pair of Doc Martens. Others are wanderers, content to drift from stall to stall, trailing fingers across fabrics, letting the market choose for them. Teenagers cluster in small packs, laughing too loudly, snapping photos in front of neon signs. Couples weave slowly through the crowd, sharing bites from paper trays. A forkful of steaming pad thai, a chunk of brownie still warm from the oven. Near the canal, the atmosphere changes. The air grows damp with the smell of water and moss, and the chatter of the market fades beneath the quieter murmur of boats shifting against their moorings. Here, the food stalls line up like a global buffet. Japanese takoyaki sizzling in cast iron, Venezuelan arepas stuffed to bursting, Turkish gizlim folded and cooked before your eyes. Steam rises in clouds, caught by the light that filters through gaps in the old brick arches. The stallholders call out cheerfully, their voices layered with accents from every corner of the world, offering samples with the deftness of long practice. Above the market, narrow iron staircases climb to hidden levels where more stalls await. You find rooms filled with antique furniture polished to a soft glow, shelves stacked with teacups patterned in fading florals, rows of dusty books whose spines crackle faintly when opened. In the dimmer corners, traders watch from behind piles of curiosities, their eyes glinting with the unspoken question, "Are you here to buy, or only to look?" Back outside, the crowd thickens as midday approaches. The sun, such as it is, slips between clouds to gild the tops of buildings, turning the graffiti into stained glass colors. The hum of conversation swells, punctuated by the bark of a stallholder's laugh, or the sudden shout of someone spotting a friend across the way. Somewhere a bottle drops and shatters. A ripple of reactions moves through the crowd before dissolving back into the market's steady roar. You catch fragments of stories as you pass. A man explaining the provenance of a 70s leather satchel, a woman reminiscing about the last time she saw the Clash play, a vendor telling a child that yes, the dragon painted on his stall really does breathe fire at night. There is a strange kind of intimacy here, even among strangers. Perhaps it's the way people lean in to be heard over the music, or the way stallholders remember your face if you linger too long. Camden seems to fold people together like ingredients in some vast recipe. Spicy, sweet, sharp, and soft, until the borders blur. As the afternoon light begins to fade, the market does not slow. If anything, it becomes more alive. The electric glow of bulbs strung overhead casting warm halos on the faces that pass beneath. The punk guitarist is still at it, sweat darkening his shirt, his grin fierce and unyielding. Somewhere deeper in the maze, someone starts drumming, the beat threading itself into the pulse of the place. You leave reluctantly, stepping back over the canal, past the food stalls and the shouts of last-minute bargains. Behind you, Camden Market continues to breathe, to sing, to dance. A wild, tangled garden of color, scent, and sound that could never be fully mapped, only experienced, again and again. Hyde Park in summer carries a particular kind of magic, the grass warm beneath the weight of 1,000 picnic blankets, the trees casting soft green shadows, the air carrying both the hum of the city and something freer, wilder. But on this day, the park feels transformed into the beating heart of a single, shared moment. It is Live Aid on the big screen, and the crowd has gathered as though answering a call older than the music itself. The screen towers at the center, framed by steel trusses and banners that flutter lazily in the mild breeze. Its surface glows even under the daylight, vivid with the colors of the stage many miles away. The first chords of a familiar song spill from the speakers, clear, bright, and amplified so wide that they ripple across the park in warm, rolling waves. A cheer rises immediately, swelling like the rush of the tide, until it becomes a roar of voices calling out in unison. People stand shoulder to shoulder, strangers close enough to feel the rhythm of each other's breathing, yet somehow there is no discomfort. A young man in a faded denim jacket throws his head back and sings, eyes closed, as though he is somewhere else entirely. Nearby, a woman in a straw hat claps to the beat, laughing when she misses it by half a second. The air is alive with that rare electricity that happens only when a crowd moves as one. As the songs unfold, the park becomes a patchwork of tiny stories. Groups of friends share bottles of cider, passing them between verses. Parents lift their children onto their shoulders so they can see the screen over the sea of heads. The little ones wave with wild enthusiasm at a singer who cannot possibly see them yet, who feels close enough to touch. Somewhere toward the back, an older couple sways gently together, their hands clasped in the easy way of those who have danced through decades of the same music. The scent of food drifts lazily through the air. Hot chips doused in vinegar, warm donuts dusted with sugar, grilled onions from a burger stand working tirelessly at the edge of the field. Every so often, a breeze stirs and carries these smells across the crowd, mingling with the faint sweetness of crushed grass beneath so many moving feet. Between songs, the camera on the big screen cuts to shots of the live audience at the concert itself, and cheers erupt here in Hyde Park, as though we are part of that distant crowd. In truth, we are, linked by the same songs, the same shared beat, the same thrum of bass that you feel not only in your ears, but deep in your chest. There is a unity here that feels almost tangible, a thread pulling thousands of hearts into the same rhythm. And then comes one of those songs, the kind that needs no introduction, the kind that has lived in radios and kitchens and long car journeys for years. The first notes send a ripple through the park. Conversations stop mid-sentence, hands reach instinctively for the air, and voices, tentative at first, join the singers. Within moments, it is no longer just the stage carrying the song. It is the entire park, thousands of voices raised, some in perfect tune, others gloriously off-key, but all carrying the same weight of joy. The sound is huge, imperfect, human, and beautiful. You glance around and see faces lit with smiles, eyes bright, people singing to the sky as though they could summon the sun itself. The screen seems almost secondary now. The real performance is happening here, between the oaks and the picnic blankets, in the glances exchanged between strangers who will never meet again but who will remember this feeling. As the afternoon leans toward evening, the light softens into gold, casting long shadows that stretch across the grass. The music does not falter. If anything, it grows more urgent, more luminous in this fading light. The final set begins, and the crowd knows it, leaning forward, clapping in anticipation, the atmosphere thick with both excitement and the bittersweet knowledge that such moments are fleeting. When the last chord rings out, there is a heartbeat of silence, as though no one quite wants to believe it's over, and then the applause comes. Rolling across the park like summer thunder, people linger, reluctant to leave, still humming, still tapping the rhythm against their legs. Somewhere in the departing crowd, you hear someone say that this was what music was meant for: to bind, to lift, to make the world, for a few hours, feel like one place. And as the light fades completely and the park begins to empty, you realize they were right. Live Aid may have been happening on a stage far away, but today in Hyde Park it lived here, too, in the voices, the laughter, the scent of warm grass, and the unshakable sense that for a little while everyone belonged to the same song. Soho after midnight is a city within a city, a place where the streets seem to hum with their own heartbeat, where the night air is stitched together from fragments of laughter, music, and the hiss of rain on stone. The rain has passed only moments before, leaving the pavement slick and glistening, each puddle holding its own distorted reflection of the world above. Neon signs burn against the darkness in crimson, violet, and electric blue, their light spilling down the facades of old brick buildings and rippling across the wet ground like liquid fire. You step carefully, your shoes tapping against the glistening cobblestones, the sound mingling with the soft hiss of tires on nearby roads. A club door swings open ahead, and a burst of disco floods the street. Bass lines deep enough to vibrate through your ribs, high synth notes that shimmer like glass. Inside, shadows of dancers move in kaleidoscopic flashes of light, their silhouettes rising and falling to the beat. The door closes again, and the music is swallowed back into the night, leaving only its echo in your bones. Around the corner, the streets narrow into intimate corridors of light and shadow. Small theaters advertise late shows in glowing letters. Bars spill their golden warmth into the street through open doors, and the murmur of voices curls into the air like cigarette smoke. Somewhere above, in an open window, a saxophone plays a lazy, unhurried melody, its notes slipping down the rain-slick walls to pool in the quiet between footsteps. The scents of Soho are as vivid as its lights. The faint metallic temps of wet pavement is overlaid with the buttery richness of pastry drifting from a pie shop still open for the night's wanderers. Its window glows softly, and inside, trays of steaming pies rest behind glass, the crusts golden and flaking. You catch the savory warmth of steak and ale, the sweeter perfume of apple and cinnamon, carried out each time the door swings open. A handful of people linger nearby, holding small cardboard boxes, their breath visible in the cool air as they eat. Passing them, you catch the gentle rise and fall of their laughter, muted but comforting. Further on, the neon deepens into the heart of Soho's night. Signs for cocktail lounges, cabaret clubs, and record stores glow above your head, their colors shifting with each step. The rain has turned the street into a moving canvas, the lights blending and swirling underfoot, so that each stride feels like walking through an oil painting still wet on the brush. In the spaces between the noise, there is a strange kind of quiet, not silence, but a softness in the way the city breathes here. You hear the drip of rainwater from an iron balcony, the faint clink of glasses from somewhere far down the alley, the low hum of a conversation in a language you do not recognize. Every corner offers a glimpse into another life. A cab pulling up to collect someone in a sequined jacket. A chef taking a cigarette break, leaning against the wall with eyes half closed. A couple holding hands as though they are the only two souls awake in the city. Eventually, the streets begin to empty. The clubs are still pulsing, but their music feels more contained now, folded back into its own spaces. The neon still burns, but its reflections grow sharper as fewer feet disturb the puddles. The pie shop closes, the scent fading into memory. Overhead, the clouds begin to break, and the moon slips free, its pale light mingling with the neon glow to paint the street in a softer, almost dreamlike palette. Walking on, you realize that Soho at night is not a place you merely pass through. It is a mood, a story told in color and rhythm, in the fleeting glance of a stranger under a in the taste of hot pastry on a cold corner, in the echo of a bar's line long after the door has closed. And as you step beyond its edges, into quieter streets, the memory follows you, bright as neon, warm as steam from a fresh pie, and endless as the night itself. Covent Garden at Christmas time feels like stepping into a snow globe that someone has just gently shaken. The square, with its centuries-old cobblestones, lies beneath a canopy of twinkling lights that seem to float in the crisp winter air, each one catching in the faint mist of your breath as you walk. The great piazza is alive with the hum of voices, laughter, and the occasional delighted gasp as the decorations reveal themselves in full garlands of evergreen, threaded with red berries wreaths hung on the pillars of the old market hall, and in the centre, a towering Christmas tree heavy with baubles that glint like captured stars. A fine snow is falling, not in great sweeping flurries, but in delicate, deliberate flakes that drift lazily from the ink-dark sky. They land silently on coats, on scarves, on the upturned faces of children who stand transfixed, tongues out to catch the tiniest taste of winter. The snow clings to the uneven stones underfoot, settling into the cracks, and as you walk, you hear the gentle crunch where it meets the warmth of your step. Music threads through the scene like a silver ribbon. A street performer stands near the colonnade, his gloved fingers coaxing familiar carols from a violin whose sound is rich and full, carrying easily above the soft rumble of the crowd. A few steps away, another musician strums a guitar, his voice warm and mellow as he sings of silent nights and winter wonderlands. Between them, the air is stitched with the sound of bells, not loud but clear, as though the season itself were ringing softly in greeting. The market stalls are dressed for the occasion, their striped awnings sheltering treasures both humble and rare. You pass trays of spiced biscuits dusted with sugar, their scent mingling with the sharper aroma of mulled wine being ladled into paper cups. The steam curls upward, rich with cinnamon, cloves, and orange peel, a warmth you can smell before you even take a sip. The stallholders, wrapped in layers of wool and cheer, call out their wares with the practiced ease of those who have done so for many Decembers past. Within the covered market, the air grows warmer and the scents more layered. Roasted chestnuts snapping open in their shells, candles perfumed with pine and cedar, leather-bound journals stacked beside shelves of hand-painted ornaments. People wander slowly, not because they must, but because there is no hurry here. Time in Covent Garden on a snowy December evening seems to stretch and soften, as though the city has agreed to let the night linger. Outside again, the snow thickens just enough to soften the edges of the square. A horse-drawn carriage waits at the far end, its lamps glowing softly, the breath of the horses rising in gentle clouds. Children press close to watch, mittens clasped together, while their parents capture the moment on cameras and phones. Near the steps, a group of carolers in deep red cloaks sing in perfect harmony, their voices filling the air with songs older than the city's own stones. As the night deepens, the lights seem to glow more warmly, their reflections rippling in the wet sheen of the cobblestones. You pause for a moment in the middle of the piazza, cup of mulled wine, warming your hands, and simply watch the swirl of snow under the lamplight, the flicker of gold and red ornaments on the great tree, the strangers smiling to one another for no reason except the shared joy of being here. It is a scene that feels at once timeless and fleeting, as though it could have been the same 100 years ago, and yet belongs entirely to this one perfect evening. And when you finally turn to leave, the sound of the carols follows you, softening into the distance, the snow still falling in slow, deliberate grace, sealing the memory like frost upon glass.